In the Kelari Empire, the legends of humans were not bedtime stories, they were warnings whispered beneath breath, taught alongside tactical doctrine and war simulations. To speak of them too loudly was considered reckless. To believe they were still out there was considered mad, but Lieutenant Vila Ansari had always been curious, born into a generation that had only known Kelari dominance. She had grown up reading old texts and secret accounts of humans who defied entire coalitions, who fought until their bones broke and still refused to kneel. Some of the texts were obviously exaggerated, yet others carried the sting of truth. Especially the ones never archived in public databases, the ones she only found through stolen access to restricted military servers. The Kelari government had long insisted that humanity had self-destructed centuries ago, a violent species consumed by their own fire. The official archives labeled them extinct, their systems sealed off, their homeworld unreachable. But then why keep records? Why keep warnings? That question never left Vila's mind. Now, as she sat aboard the Varial Ascendant, a sleek, state-of-the-art Kelari scout vessel stationed on the fringe of known space, she stared at her console and felt her blood run cold. Her shift had started like any other. Standard long-range sweeps, occasional asteroid tracking, a few flag junk signals drifting from long-dead wrecks. The usual dot, then it came a single, erratic ping on the radar, not unusual in itself. False positives happened all the time in the debris fields, but something about this one was off. It didn't flicker like a degraded satellite or forgotten mine. It pulsed in rhythm, deliberate, calculated. Vila leaned forward, isolating the contact. There it was, a vessel, but not one she recognized. It wasn't on any known Kelari registry, nor did it match any council warship, mining cruiser, or diplomatic barge. The silhouette was jagged, almost primitive in design, angular, brutal, distinctly unfriendly, and yet familiar. Unsettlingly so. She tapped the command panel and enhanced the outline. That's when her heart skipped. The shape on the screen matched a forbiddance image etched into one of the few surviving pre-council Kelari war shrines. She had seen it once when she was 13 during a secret visit to the derelict temple on the moon of Vares. Black warship with a forward-angled prow and downward-facing wings, like a bird of prey diving toward its kill. Had had a name, whispered only in old soldiers' songs and drunken war ballads. Ghost of soul. Her voice trembled as she called out, "Radar contact, Sector 47K, confirming unknown vessel, no transponder, no ID signature." Her crew fell quiet. The operator beside her leaned in, eyes narrowing. Could be debris? He offered weakly. Vila shook her head. It's moving. Slowly, steadily, controlled vector. This is not junk. The radar blip crawled across the screen, methodically, scanning the region. Its engine profile didn't register. Its wake left no clear emissions. But the intent behind its movement was unmistakable. It wasn't wandering. It was patrolling. Low murmurs spread across the bridge as the rest of the crew began pulling diagnostics and signal sweeps. Vila barely heard them. Her focus remained locked on the growing shape. Everything she had studied in secret, every story mocked as superstition, all of it was real. And it was right in front of her. She opened a secure channel and transmitted a code black alert to Fleet Command. Command. This is Lieutenant Ansari aboard the Varial Ascendant. I am reporting a Class 0 contact, possibly human. The silence that followed was heavier than any static. Finally, a voice crackled through Admiral Rickson. His tone, normally bored and perfunctory, now sounded strained, tense. Repeat your last transmission, Lieutenant. Vela did, clearly, slowly. The weight of it hung in the air. Lieutenant Valen Sari kept her gaze fixed on the radar screen, even as a strange, sinking sensation churned in her stomach. The blip hadn't vanished. It had stopped moving. That alone was disturbing. Spacefaring ships didn't stop without reason. In deep space, even pausing meant wasting fuel, exposing one's position, and potentially inviting danger. Especially in the gray fields, where old wreckage and forgotten weapons still drifted like angry phantoms. But this vessel, this thing had just gone completely still. Not in a technical error sort of way. It had paused with intention. Vila's sharp Kalari ears twitched as the soft hum of the Varial Ascendant filled the silent control room. The crew around her exchanged nervous glances. Some stared at their screens with quiet dread. Others just froze, unwilling to believe what they were seeing. A ship with that design angular, matte black, its profile bristling with outdated but brutal-looking weapons, shouldn't exist anymore. It couldn't. The Galactic Council had long declared humanity extinct, or at least irrelevant, their systems quarantined and unreachable after the Great Purge centuries ago, but Vila had read between the lines. She had always believed some truths were buried for convenience, and now, staring at the radar's confirmed return, she knew she had just uncovered one of those buried truths. She tapped her comms pad. Ascendant to Fleet Command. I'm transmitting visuals now. You'll want to see this. The ship's silhouette hung like a curse in her feed. Obsidian armor, jagged architecture, no visible lights, and yet somehow it commanded attention. Like a predator crouching in shadow, the response from command came after a delay. Not the normal kind caused by transmission lag, but one she recognized as hesitation. Uncertainty. Then came Admiral Rickson's voice, clipped and unreadable. Lieutenant. Sorry. Confirm the vessel's ID again. I've run the scan 3 times, sir. The vessel is unregistered in Council databases, but it matches descriptions from historical archives. Design class, Prometheus. Origin, human. Static crackled for a moment. Rickson's voice returned. Quieter this time. You are not to engage. Do not make contact. Do not approach. Continue passive scans only. We're initiating contingency Omega. The command deck stiffened. The words fell like ice water over the crew. Contingency Omega. A protocol reserved for only 3 theoretical threats, none of which had ever been confirmed real. Until now. Vila looked around at her crew. Their eyes met hers, silently pleading for reassurance. But all she could offer was procedure. We're pulling back. 10,000 kilometers, all surveillance passive only. The helmsman nodded, his movements rigid. The ship shuddered softly as it veered away from the silent colossus now drifting behind them. Vila couldn't help but stare at the external monitor as the ship came into visual range. No insignia. No heat bloom. Just a hulking void-colored monster from humanity's forgotten war days, gliding through space like it belonged there more than they ever could. And then it moved. Not a lurch. Not a chase. Just a rotation. The vessel shifted slightly, angling one side of its hull toward them. Ma'am. I think it's scanning us, said the comms officer. How? There's no signal, Vila said. No traditional signal. But the quantum field on Deck 4 is vibrating interference consistent with gravimetric mapping. They weren't just spotted. They were being studied. And yet, no weapons powered up. No hails. No threats. Just that steady, calculated observation. Sir, said her navigation tech, we should retreat further. No, Vila said slowly. We need to know what they want. But even as she spoke, the human ship began to move again, this time forward, accelerating, except it didn't fire its engines like any normal ship. Instead, It slipped forward with increasing speed, its trajectory headed toward the edge of the debris field where some of the oldest wrecks from the galactic wars still floated. A graveyard of machines and ruined ambition. Within moments, the ship vanished from even her long-range scans. The stealth was perfect. Gone. No trace. No warp signature. No engine heat. Just the echo of what had happened. The crew was silent. Vila sat back in her chair, heart pounding. The signal had been clear. That ship had seen them. It had paused. It had noticed. Not erratically, not as prey or predator, but with purpose. Controlled, measured, aware. From her station aboard the Varial Ascendant, Lieutenant Vila Sari watched in grim fascination as the unidentified vessel, a human ship by all logic and visual analysis, shifted its orientation. Its bow turned slowly, angling toward their position. Her crew tensed. A pin could have shattered the silence on the bridge. Ships didn't behave like this, not in dead space. Not unless they knew they were being watched and chose to watch back. It wasn't an act of aggression. No weapons powered up. No shields flared to life. The human ship simply acknowledged them. Then, without warning, a transmission pinged across their communications array. Not a wideband hail. Not a mod-band hail. Council-compliant encrypted signal. A narrow, tight beam burst directed precisely at the Varial Ascendant. Vela's comms officer, Ensign Tellin, looked stunned. It's targeting our array with an ancient band. Analog frequency, something called UHF. This tech predates even early Council standardization. Vila raised an eyebrow. Old school, he nodded. Very, but deliberate. It bypasses our encryption layers entirely. Raw data, minimal power. Use, no digital signature. Translate it, she ordered. Let's hear what it says. There was a pause as the computer parsed the message. Basic, galactic basic, though the syntax was outdated and formal. Then the words appeared on screen. We are not your enemy. Not yet. We have returned. This galaxy is broken. And we remember who broke it. That was all. No origin tag. No name. No threat. Just a message. Cold. Measured. Heavy with implication. Tellin looked up. Ma'am, it's gone. The ship's accelerating. Gone? She repeated, spinning to face the radar. Sure enough, the vessel had powered forward, only it left no thermal trail, no ion distortion, no warp bloom. It simply moved faster and faster until it disappeared into the wreckage fields of the old war zones where tens of thousands of derelict ships still floated in solemn orbits, too dangerous and sacred to salvage. Estimated vector? She asked. Heading directly into the central grave field, the nav officer confirmed. Right toward the heart of the oldest war debris, where they say the final battle happened. The unspoken weight settled over them all. Everyone knew the legends. In that place, centuries ago, the last of humanity's fleets were said to have made their stand. Vast black armored ships swarming like hornets, punching through council lines with sheer fury. Some claimed the Terrans died to the last ship. Others claimed they fled into the void, beyond charted space. Vila now believed neither. They hadn't died. They hadn't fled. They'd waited. She opened a second, secure transmission to High Command, appending the tight beam message from the human ship. Her hands trembled slightly as she input her authentication. Attach full sensor logs, she instructed. Timestamp everything. Tag it as Omega confirmed contact. Include the message. Her captain, Commander Yevis, entered the bridge. Just then, still adjusting his uniform. What's happening? I got an emergency ping from Rickson's office. Something about Terran contact? Vela turned to him with eyes that no longer doubted. We made contact, she said quietly. Not with a myth, not a ghost. With them? Yevis paled. He was one of the old Garden officer who had studied the Purge War histories but dismissed them as sanitized propaganda. He looked at the screen where the message still pulsed. White text on black background. We are not your enemy. Not yet. The implications were enormous. The Terrans had come back not with fire and fury, but with a warning, a judgment. The message didn't ask for forgiveness or surrender. It stated facts, and it promised reckoning. Murmur of voices rose behind her. The crew, trained to operate like a seamless unit, was shaken. Some were afraid, others awestruck. But none looked skeptical, because they'd all seen it, and they'd felt it, that terrible presence, coiled like a serpent in the dark, not mindless, not bloodthirsty. Watching. Jay Weiss finally spoke. So, what do we do now? Vila glanced out the viewport, where nothing remained but stars and fading echoes. We prepare, she said, because the legends were true, and the humans had returned not as conquerors, but as something far more dangerous. The message spread like wildfire across the Kalari military networks. At first, it was dismissed an elaborate fabrication, a stress-induced hallucination by a fringe scout team. But the sensor logs were irrefutable. The silhouette, the tight beam, signal, the old world language no known species used anymore. And most damning of all, the vessel's impossible stealth profile. Within 72 hours of the Varial Ascendant's encounter, the entire High Command shifted from disbelief to silent crisis mode. Hundreds of fleets were placed on standby. Strategic assets across Kalari space were cloaked in denial, even as analysts frantically reviewed thousands of sealed war archives for patterns, anything to predict what might come next, but they were already too late. The first strike hit the Velthor system. It came with no warning. Velthor was a key military-industrial hub, fully fortified, shielded, defended by 3 orbital bastions and a fleet of 78 warships. And yet, within 9 minutes of contact, all 3 bastions were gone. Not destroyed in a spectacular explosion, but carved apart precisely with surgical efficiency. The warships? Disabled, left drifting in silence. Not one fatality, no mass casualties. Just every vessel stripped of weapons, engines, and AI cores as if dissected by some godlike surgeon. The crews were unharmed, but they were shaken to their core, and atop the rubble of Velthor Station, a symbol appeared scorched into the outer plating of a destroyed command dome. One word, written in Terran script. Terra remembers. That was all. No speech. No retaliation when reinforcements arrived. Just silence. The Kalari fleet that responded didn't pursue. They couldn't. The human ship had already vanished. The message was clear. This wasn't a declaration of war. It was a reminder, a reckoning. Back on the Varial Ascendant, Vila sat in a darkened operations chamber reviewing updated intelligence reports. Her ship had been reassigned, no longer a scout but now part of a hastily assembled human contingency task force. It was a name that sounded brave on paper, but rang hollow in every corridor. Her datapad displayed the same word the humans left behind: Terra, a planet that, according to official council records, had become a dead world centuries ago after an environmental collapse. Lies. She now understood that Earth hadn't been destroyed. It had vanished, deliberately pulled from the galactic stage, hidden behind blackout fields, myth, and fear. Not because the humans were extinct, but because they'd chosen exile. She looked up at her fellow officers in the room. The mood was grim. Tactical displays showed a dozen confirmed sightings of human ships across the outer rim, none attacking, none broadcasting threats. Yet every incident was followed by precision sabotage, military outposts erased, corrupt corporate trade hubs rendered inoperable. Planetary governors mysteriously resigning days after anonymous visits. It wasn't warfare. It was cleansing. They're not here to fight us, Vila said, her voice quiet but firm. They're here to fix something. Commander Yevis, seated beside her, nodded grimly. Fix or punish? Depends on what they find. Across the galaxy, panic began to bloom. The Council remained officially silent, but their emergency chambers were filled with shouting. Alliance leaders blamed each other. Armadas postured on system borders, afraid of what or who might arrive next. Trade routes collapsed. Civilians fled toward the inner worlds, and in the background, always one step ahead, the Terran ships moved like phantoms. Even now, no one had gotten a clear visual of a human crew. No biological scan. No intercepted face-to-face contact, but their signature was unmistakable. They struck with restraint, but with such chilling precision that it felt more threatening than any invasion. In the days that followed, a pattern emerged. Every target had something in common: war crimes, historical oppression, involvement in the human purge centuries ago. Humanity wasn't striking randomly. What had started as a quiet ripple, the sighting of a single ship, had become a wave crashing through the stars. Systems once secure were now haunted by the silent passage of Terran vessels. No invasions, no diplomacy. Just precision strikes and vanishing shadows. And then everything changed. It happened during a council emergency broadcast, one meant to reassure the public. The usual parade of tight-lipped delegates appeared on screen, their polished speeches aimed at calming growing fears. They spoke of unknown elements, of rogue insurgents, still refusing to say the word, but the broadcast was hijacked. Feed didn't cut. It shifted. The camera stayed live as a new signal overlaid the screen. Static. A slow fade-in. And then a human face, female, middle-aged, pale skin, short silver-streaked hair, calm eyes that held neither anger nor joy, only certainty. She spoke in flawless, galactic basic. This is Ambassador Alina Voss. I speak on behalf of the Terran Assembly. Her voice carried across every system connected to Council networks. Even isolated colonies received the transmission. It echoed in war rooms, classrooms, Senate halls, and prison ships alike. We remember what was done to us, the betrayal, the blockade, the genocide attempts hidden behind bureaucratic terms. We remember being declared too dangerous, too wild, and unfit for integration. You made that decision for us. Behind her, the backdrop was unmistakably Earth, blue skies, towering forests, cities that defied gravity and expectation. Not ruins. Civilization, you erased us from maps, buried us under lies, hoped time would do the rest. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. But time did not weaken us. It tempered us. We did not die. We prepared. Across the bridge of the Varial Ascendant, Vila watched the PIA transmission in stunned silence. Around her, officers stared at the screen like it was a prophecy made flesh. We are not here for revenge, Voss continued. We are here for balance, for truth, and if necessary, correction. No threats. Just terms. Vila felt a chill that no environmental control could fix. This wasn't a species reclaiming lost territory. It was a civilization stepping out of exile to judge the galaxy that cast it aside. To those who profited from silence, your time is ending. To those who believed we were myths, open your eyes. And to those who remember, we remember. You too. Then the screen flickered, and the original council broadcast resumed, flustered, uncertain, immediately shut down by its own handlers. But it was too late. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had heard. Over the following weeks, everything changed. Some factions panicked, fortifying planets, recalling fleets. Others tried to open diplomatic channels, but no Terran representative responded. Not yet. The Terrans were focused, calculated. They moved like surgeons with a galaxy-sized scalpel, but not all systems were. Struck. Some were left alone. Systems that had sheltered human refugees during the Purge. Independent sectors that had refused to participate in the blockade. Minor powers that had spoken out quietly but defiantly. The message was clear. Judgment. Yes, but not indiscriminate. Vila's ship was recalled to orbit above a neutral zone. She stood at the observation deck now, watching distant stars blink. In and out of range. One of them, she knew, was Sol.Earth.Real. Alive. And powerful beyond measure. Commander Yevis approached from behind. Intel says the Terrans are holding back. They could cripple us all if they wanted. They don't want to, Vila replied. Not yet, he sighed. You were right about the myths. She gave a hollow smile. They weren't myths. Just warnings that no one wanted to believe, Yevis hesitated. So what now? Do we fight them? Vela turned to him slowly. No, we listen. We survive. Maybe, if we're lucky, we learn. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy wasn't Kilari. It wasn't council. It wasn't ruled by votes or treaties or fear.